Bobby, welcome back to the show, my friend. We have the deciding factors or the decisions have been made on three MLS teams if they will advance to the next round of the FIFA Club World Cup. Only one team advanced, Inter Miami. So today we're going to talk about each team, how they performed. I'm going to bring up their group stage, and we're going to kind of give like a progress report on each MLS team's performance in this World Cup. But before we get into that, how are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, we're doing great. If you would have told me one of the teams out of the three was going to make it into the knockout stages, I would have said, "Hey, that's a good kind of outcome out of the three teams." Because to be honest, it was looking pretty bleak going into the Club World Cup. I was a little more optimistic, but it still looked like a tough task, and it became a tough task. It became something where we saw some teams possibly not play up to their ability, and we saw some teams play better than their ability. So it was a good tournament. I'm excited for this knockout stage and all these teams to kind of round out. Hopefully, some Liga MX teams make it to the knockout stage as well.
Yeah, I'm rooting for CONCACAF counterparts. Monterrey. Hopefully, they are able to Uruguay, right? And that's who they're playing right now. Hopefully,
Yeah,
they can advance, and that'd be impressive if they did. But let's get into the first MLS team in this tournament. Let's talk about Inter Miami. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 8,000 subscribers by the end of the Club World Cup. And with your help, I know we can reach that goal. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. Now, back to the video. Now, Inter Miami is the only team to make it out of their group stage. So I would say that we probably give them the highest regards, right? The highest marks of approval, right? They had a group of Palmeiras, Porto, and Al Ahly. And honestly, a lot of people did not think they were going to be able to get out of this group. But here they are, second place in the group, advancing, playing PSG this coming Sunday, and damn near won the group.
yeah. I mean, they were literally one goal away from winning the group, and to be honest, if you would have told me Porto wasn't going to advance, I might have believed you because they're not the strongest European team, and that was very evident even when they played against Al Ahly, right? Honestly, Al Ahly drawing against Porto with 6 goals against and 4 goals scored. Like they're no chump of a team. They scored 4 goals in this group stage, the lowest goal total out of any team in this group. So again, every team was capable of being that team in this group and making it out. And it looks like Inter Miami was that team along with Palmeiras. I thought Palmeiras didn't look that strong personally. But again, a heartbreaker in the last 10 minutes of that game versus Inter Miami. That sees Inter Miami still advance, but possibly they could have had the first position instead of the second.
Yeah, and I want to hit through their games real quick. Al Ahly is the most historic team in African history. They won the most championships of anybody. And Inter Miami didn't really look that good in that game. It was luckily a 0-0 draw, but that was kind of like, no disrespect to Al Ahly. I think they're a very good team, but a lot of people thought, oh, that's going to be the easiest of the group they're going to play.
Right.
And if they're not able to score on them or have a decent performance, this could get ugly really quick. But they play their second match against Porto, and they did really well. They were down 1-0 because of the bad penalty that was caused by Noah Allen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then Talasco Segovia had an absolute banger of a goal, in my opinion. It was a beautiful goal, right? And then Messi had his magic. He got the free kick. And then that right there, Fabi, when they beat Porto, was like, okay, they actually might be able to do this.
Yeah, they have a formula to win, basically, right? If you find a way to get Messi involved, maybe you don't give up too many dumb mistakes. You find a way to get on the board without a free kick, without some set piece goals, and then you let Messi do his magic. And I think that's the recipe too against any other European team, in my opinion. You kind of drowned out the game, you get on the scoreboard, you don't have any stupid mistakes, and then you let Messi or Suarez in the Palmeiras game kind of work their magic and make something happen for this Inter Miami team. But keep yourself in the game. Don't blow over once you lose 1 goal. Definitely keep yourself in the game and make sure you still have the chance of some magic happening.
Now, with them having the 2-0 lead over Palmeiras, right? They were dominating that game. A lot of people were shocked. They did not expect that to happen. Inter Miami played pretty organized, capitalized on opportunities. La Tortuga had a beautiful, beautiful goal in slow motion. Tadio Yande had a great finish as well. Man, just talk about squandering it. They're advanced, but man, if they had won that game, they would have played Botafogo instead of playing PSG. So it kind of makes you think of what if. But when you saw them play Palmeiras and be able, because Palmeiras, a lot of people think maybe the best team in South America in general, right? They might be better. It's either them or Flamengo is what the debate is, but they went toe for toe with them. So is that so would you say that that's the most impressive performance of them all for them so far?
No, I got to give it to the Porto game. I think the Porto game showed that they had grit. They were able to come back from a 1-0 deficit right out the gate in the second half, something that Miami's never really been able to do, right? Even Julian Gressel came out saying if you find a way to stop them for 35 minutes, you've won the game, or you have a good chance of winning now. And they kind of flipped that on its head, and they came out strong in the second half of that Porto game, and they found a way to get a W. The Palmeiras game, there was some opportunities that, man, this game could have been 3-0, 4-0. Tadeo Allende lost another one-on-one with the keeper where he easily could have got twice on the score sheet. Another kind of Suarez assist too that really, had him to the races. But to kind of think about that game, that Palmeiras game, man, do I have a bad taste in my mouth on how it ended. So I'm going to have to say the Porto game is the most impressive one to me. And, man, Ollie, that game could have went different if the goalkeeper, excuse me if I'm not remembering him, but didn't save that last shot with his face. Man, that could have been a 1-0 win, and we would have been saying, man, Inter Miami could have won this group too. So, but every single game was emotional. Every single game was something to remember. And that's something that you can't really get, and I hate to say it, in regular MLS season play. Like, this team played like it was built for tournaments, and this team played like it wanted it, so it was exciting. It was definitely one of the most exciting teams to watch in this tournament, even outside of MLS.
No, I agree with that. Now, as far as before we move to the next group, who was your best player for Inter Miami and your most disappointing player for Inter Miami through the group stage?
Yeah, look, to Lasco Segovia, in my opinion, there was reports coming out that 20 million was the asking price, and man, did he play like the player that had a $20 million asking price. I thought he played phenomenally in that Palmeiras game, even had a little bit of flair to his game. All of a sudden, this guy kind of broke out of his shell, and then in the Porto game had that beauty of a goal. I think personally, there was no better player. I mean, Messi, of course, is always up there, but I think Lasco Segovia definitely impressed me this group stage. And then Ustari too. I got to give a shout out to Ustari. I felt like he definitely won that starting position forever. And I think Drake Callender is expendable now, and he showed that. But I would say disappointing. Oh man, I'm gonna have to say Noah Allen. I think Noah Allen really showed his inexperience when it comes to these type of tournaments. I feel like he definitely could have had a better showing. He almost gave up 2 really stupid penalties, which would have been a killer for Inter Miami in this group stage, but they got lucky and the second one wasn't called. But definitely gave away some dumb corner kicks in the Palmeiras games. I felt like he was a young player, so of course he's going to make mistakes. And on top of that, I felt like Sergio Busquets was really ineffective. That would be another guy who I felt like didn't really do much this tournament. Suarez was going to be up on that list until his goal versus Palmeiras, because that was a moment of brilliance by the
redemption. Yes, I would. So my most impactful or important player in the group stage would have to be Ustari. Incredible saves in the Al Ali game. I think he had some good saves in Porto, and I think he was really good against Palmeiras. Even though he really wasn't challenged that much in the Palmeiras game until the second half, but I think he was stellar the entire group stage. My least impressive player was Sergio Busquets. He gave he had a lot of bad giveaways. He was very slow. He looked vulnerable in the defense. And the second goal that Palmeiras scored was on him. He was way too slow to react when the guy shot the ball. When he had the ball, he was just like a snail.
Right.
So we might have to coin him whatever the Spanish way of saying the snail is now Busquets. We got the turtle and the snail. But that's how I would rank it as well. That, as far as best player, worst player. Let's move on to the next group stage, which is Group B, which is Seattle Sounders. So Seattle obviously didn't get a point out of their group. Very tough group, the toughest group in the entire tournament. I think we
Yes,
both
sir.
could agree on that.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's funny. The order this is going with the group is actually my power rankings of the performance by the teams. I think Seattle had the second best performance of MLS clubs at this tournament.
Yeah, no, Seattle definitely impressed. And I do remember coming on the MLS, it was before we kind of started this Club World Cup, and said, man, I think Seattle's going to have a good opportunity to turn some heads. And I think they did, even though they didn't have a single point, and they might be one of the only teams to not have a point in the group stage. I feel like they had an impressive showing. I remember Will was saying that there was going to be 5-0, 7-0 when it comes to Seattle playing against these big European teams. But man, I mean, against Botafogo, they were down 2-0, and they still found a way to make that game interesting. And they still found a way to make the Sounders faithful still believe in this team. And then on top of that, when they played Atletico, I felt like they had a solid showing. And then again versus Paris, PSG, I thought they were right in it. If it wasn't for one or two shots that Jesus Ferreira missed, they could have been tied against PSG, and they could have came out with the point. But unfortunately, the scorelines didn't reflect how well, in my opinion, Seattle was playing. And some guys like Christian Roldan really, really shined and really showed that they're worth it to this team. And Seattle could compete in MLS. I kind of saw it as like, man, Seattle's not doing the best right now, but I feel like they could, if this same, Seattle Sounders show up in the playoffs, they could make some damage.
Yeah, I think that they had a very impressive finish as far as expectations versus results. A lot of people didn't expect them to score a goal, including myself. They scored two. Yeah, I mean, look, the group they're playing in, I mean, it was almost impossible to get out of it, right? Botafogo wasn't even supposed to get out of it. They luckily did. Atletico was the second team left out, but made you think about a lot of what could have been is my takeaway. What could have been if they had a striker who could finish? How many more goals would they have, converted? Would they have been able to get a point? I mean, Fabi, just think about the Botafogo game. They had 23 shots, 15 on goal, and they only had one goal, and it was really an own goal because it was a Christian Roldan shot that deflected off the defender and went in. I mean, when you have 15 shots on target, man, you need to be putting away at least like 3 or 4 of them. I mean, 15 on target, not 15 shots, 15 on target.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple howlers that game too, where if they just connected on a shot, they would have been able to score. And man, that game could have ended 3-2 in the Seattle Sounders' favor if they just connected on those shots that were wide open net too. So yeah, it was very unfortunate for the Seattle Sounders. But even with all that understood in mind, they still found a way to be very respectful as a team in this tournament. I they didn't get embarrassed, and that's something to be very proud of if you're wearing Rave Green. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the worst loss they had was 2 goals. I mean, that's way better than I thought it was going to be, right? I mean, scoring against Atletico, they scored against Botafogo. They weren't able to score against PSG, but let's not forget they're also the reigning UEFA Champions League winners, right? So it's not like, oh, you lost to PSG 2-0, you should be embarrassed. Like, that's pretty impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, and especially because Ferreira had a shot on goal without a goalkeeper and easily could have put it on frame, and maybe they could have got a deflection and a goal. But yeah, unfortunately, the almost goals aren't goals, and they ended up with 0 points. But again, respectable in this tournament, that's for sure.
No, I agree. So what was so I'm assuming you'd agree with me. Botafogo was probably their most impressive performance, and PSG was probably their least impressive, even though they're kind of like very similar. If you think about it, none of them were really bad.
Right.
We're kind of splitting hairs here, but like if you had to put a number on it, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think in the Atletico game, there was a moment where they were down by 1 goal and it was 2-1, and they were still in it, right? So that's the craziest part of that game. So it has to be the game where they didn't score a goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the Botafogo, just because it was so close, if they could have just found the back of the net,
Right.
They could have just been able to score. It could have been a totally different thing. So who would be your one player that impressed and disappointed for the Sounders in this tournament?
Yeah, look, this one's kind of easy. I would say that the person that really impressed was Christian Roldan. I thought he, you know, deservedly so got their first goal. I felt like he was the best player on the pitch for versus Botafogo, and within the first, 3 games in the group stage, I felt like he was tracking back a lot to help out the defense too. And there was a moment where Alex Rodon was definitely beat, and he got all the way back in the PSG game to make sure that they didn't have a breakaway. And I felt like, man, this Roldan is everywhere on the pitch. I mean, this guy is truly, truly the heart and soul of this team and the engine. I thought he did a great job in this group stage, and man, it's going to sound crazy to say, but there should be, if there's some problems with the USMNT with depth, there should be some looks going his way. That's for sure.
And who is your most disappointing player for the Sounders?
Yeah, I think that one's an easy one. Nuhu gave up one of the dumbest fouls I've ever seen in a tournament like this in a World Cup. If this was a normal World Cup, they would be talking about it for years. Like, we're talking 20 years later, they're going to be like, hey, you remember that new foul that gave up a great opportunity that Botafogo, scored easily on because they have one of the best strikers in the air? Like, come on. Like, you don't want to give away set pieces to Botafogo, and that's exactly what Nuhu did with a dumb retaliation where he extended both arms. Like, that's like the doofus of the tournament, in my opinion, and Nuhu definitely gets the worst player in Rave Green.
Yeah, I'd say Christian Roldan's my best player. He was commanding the midfield. He looked like he belonged, and considering who he's playing against, right? And he really doesn't have the help and supporting cast you would like to see them have. And he was holding his own. He was commanding the midfield. He was tracking back. He was winning tackles, making key passes. Looked really good, man. And I agree. If he plays like that, maybe he should. I mean, maybe he should get a call up. As far as players I was disappointed with, I'd have to pick Pedro de la Vega. He's a DP. He's expected to be the guy. He's expected to be one who can help that team score goals, create chances, help them advance in tournaments like this. And he only played 79 minutes in 3 games.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
Yeah. So his stock has just completely sunk like a rock. I mean, apparently there were teams in this group stage that were interested in him. Maybe Botafogo. It definitely wasn't Madrid or Atletico or PSG, but I don't think they're interested anymore after what they saw.
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed on the De La Vega train in Seattle, and he needs to find a new home. That's for sure.
All right, Fabio, we got the last team in the last place, which I got a lot of flack for this, but it's just facts. It's true, right? LAFC had the worst, most embarrassing performance. And I just, people are coping and making excuses for them instead of just being honest and saying, hey, this team really disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on how much optimism I had for LAFC, maybe it was a little bit blindly optimistic, because looking at the way this group kind of ended, Flamengo was up top. And I really thought, for some weird reason, Flamengo was beatable. And I really thought, Esperance, right? Am I saying that right? Esperance?
I just call them Tunis.
Yeah, Tunis. They were beatable. I mean, I thought they were going to be one of the easiest teams in the tournament. I mean, Auckland FC became that team, and Tunis ended up with 3 points somehow. And honestly, LAFC just didn't look like there was any bite. I had a tweet talking about that Tunis game, and I'm like, yo, Steve Cherundolo is literally not freaking out right now, and this is the biggest game of his career and the biggest game for all these LAFC players, and they're down 1-0 against possibly one of the worst teams in the Club World Cup, and this guy's not even yelling at his players. It was beyond baffling to me, and everyone was like, well, welcome to our life. And I was like, yeah, but this is like a World Cup. Like, it's not a regular Wednesday night versus the Colorado Rapids in 30 degrees. Like, this is the biggest game of Steve Cherundolo's career as a manager, and I just didn't see enough grit. I mean, yeah, given he's a lame duck coach and he's on his way out, but man, dude, like, show up, like,
show some passion. Yeah, like you care.
Passion. Like, I don't know. I would be livid if I was an LAFC. I was livid as an MLS reporter, right? Like, dude,
yeah,
yell out Luonga if he's holding the ball too much. Like, dude, do something, like change something up. And I don't know, like looking at David Martinez and his personality on the pitch and the way he kind of looks not in it, it shows that the coaching is definitely not really doing their job, in my opinion. And I look at David Martinez and see a person that is kind of like not troubled, but he almost needs the right direction and he needs a hard coach. And I think just the way David Martinez is like turning out is showing how bad Steven Cherundolo was with LAFC. And I don't think the finals, I don't think that is truly fair because they've won trophies. I think it's more or less the way the players are kind of taking these losses and kind of taking these games. I just don't think there's enough passion, enough fire in these LAFC players, and that lands on the coach, in my opinion. Like,
Oh, I agree. I agree. When they played Chelsea and it was 2-0, I thought, maybe this team has a chance. Chelsea's obviously spends a lot of money. They have a lot of resources, a lot of investment. Very good team, 4th place in the Premier League, best league in the world. Maybe they'll do better. Like, that's not the worst loss you can have, right? But then they played Tunis, a team. And look, I got a lot of flack like saying that I was dumping on Tunis. I'm not dumping on Tunis. I'm not discrediting their history in Africa because they're probably like one of the second or third most historic team in Africa. All I'm saying is that LAFC has a lot of resources and probably more resources than Tunis. Yes, they don't have the trophies, but they're not playing in Africa. They're not playing in the same style of tournaments. They're not playing against the same, teams. It's a little different, right? I was just saying that an LAFC team who has a bigger roster budget, more international players, playing in the United States, not in Africa. So like Tunis is having to travel to the States, right? So they're playing in their domestic country, or they're playing in their country. How could you lose 2-0? How could you lose 2-0 to a team like that?
and maybe we're being a little tough on them because they didn't play at home while Seattle and Miami got to play at home. I don't know. Could they have put a Rose Bowl game like one of
Hey,
them?
to be fair though, Inter Miami did beat Porto at Atlanta.
Yeah.
So they did travel. I mean, it's not like, what LAFC did traveling to Atlanta or Orlando, but they still did travel. I mean, they did play an away game. Seattle is the only team that played every single game at home. But man, you can't even get a draw with Tunis.
Yeah.
Like Tunis beat you as badly as the 4th place Premier League team.
Yeah. It's flat out one of the worst performances in this tournament, I think.
It was the worst performance outside of Auckland. Take Auckland out of the picture because
Boca, right? Boca tying to Auckland. That was pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. But this was bad too. And Denny Bouanga, we'll get into, I guess, players in a second. But when they lost that game, I thought, oh my God, it's over. I mean, it was over. Like, they have nothing to play for. And then when Flamengo smacked Chelsea 3-1, that loss to Chelsea 2-0 didn't look as impressive anymore.
Right.
Because the team that you thought you felt good about just got smacked.
Right.
So, and then the Flamengo game didn't matter. It didn't matter if they won, lost, draw. They were out of the tournament. I don't even think Flamengo tried for that game. They were just resting up. Maybe a couple guys. I think maybe some of their players played, but like they weren't going full 100%, balls to the wall, have to win this game. They were just coasting by. And then LAFC, when they did score a goal, Flamengo just turned around and scored one 5 minutes later. So to get the draw. And that's another thing too, Fabi, is like, how does LAFC score less goals in this group than Seattle does in their group?
Yeah, that is wild.
That's indefensible.
Yeah, especially with the attacking talent that LAFC has.
Compared to Seattle, yes.
Giroud,
yes. Giroud, Bouanga, Martinez is talented. Someone should have stepped up. And this is why it's so disappointing. And I got flack because, we can see this group right here, right? I got flack saying, oh, you are an idiot because LAFC never had a chance to get on that group. Look at that group. That group, okay, first of all, yes, they were not going to finish higher than Chelsea, most likely. But if you take Chelsea out of the equation, how is this group any harder than what Miami had to do? Miami had to make sure they got a result with Palmeiras. They had to make sure they had to get a result with Porto, and they had to make sure they got a result with Al Ahly, who's actually the best team in Africa. So I just think that's a lame excuse. That's just a
Yeah,
lame excuse.
the Tunis game is where they lost the group. I mean, that's where you knew you weren't going to make it, right? So I think that loss is definitely the worst loss out of all MLS teams, and will always be a stain on LAFC's history.
Yeah. So real quick, who is
Also,
your?
probably their worst loss ever.
It is
Maybe
no.
the
That's the worst loss in club history.
maybe the CONCACAF Champions League final at home versus Leon is a bad one, but this one's pretty bad too.
Well, it's because they got embarrassed, and it's a team they should have beaten. Like I think they should have beaten them, or at least got a draw with them. But who? Let me go first on this, and I'll let you finish out before we close out the video. But my biggest disappointing player for LAFC by a landslide is Denis Bouanga. Denis Bouanga didn't score a single goal until the 84th minute of the last game,
And he missed the penalty.
and he missed the penalty in the Tunis game, which just was like symbolic of how bad he had been in this tournament. And when you got a DP, I said this earlier with Seattle, I've said this with Miami, like all MLS teams, when you have a DP, they're supposed to be the best player on the pitch or one of them. They have to deliver or you don't have any chance. He didn't deliver. He shrunk in the moment, and it's sad, but it is what it is. And hopefully, if the rumors of Club America offering $13 million for him are true, they should take that and run with it because he's 31 years old. He's not getting younger. That's probably the most he'll ever go for. And if I had to pick my player that impressed me the most, I would probably say Palencia. I thought Palencia looked really good for LAFC. I think Igor Jesus was very good in the midfield. I think he was an absolute stud and commanded the midfield. And I think that he was a big reason why some of these games weren't as bad as they could have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Bouanga is the easy one. Hollingshead was being picked apart. I mean,
Yeah.
Hollingshead, I don't think it's too fair to say he had a bad tournament, but he's an MLS level outside back. Maybe not a Club World Cup outside back, and it was obvious that teams were paying attention and realizing that, and they were really targeting him. And unfortunately, he was caught ball watching a couple of times, and goals got in because of it. So, yeah, Ryan Hollingshead was definitely not the best player for me, and Bouanga too. And then, man, like, can I even choose a player that impressed? I want to say Aaron Long. I mean, when they kind of that back four held up against Chelsea for pretty long, I thought Aaron Long did a good job of kind of leading the defense and truly kind of making some value out of these games. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah. Well, that's our power rankings for the FIFA Club World Cup for MLS. I think overall it was a good performance because Inter Miami obviously made it out of the group stage, which is a positive for the league. LAFC left more to be desired, and Seattle impressed because their expectations were very, very low and they exceeded them and they looked better than we thought. So it's been fun. Hopefully Inter Miami can impress against PSG, which they will be playing on Sunday. Favi, I appreciate you for coming on. Also, make sure you check Favi's stuff out at Urban Pitch. Make sure you go follow him on Twitter and X at Fabian Rankel, just like what you see down below, but no spaces at Fabian Rankel. And then also make sure you check him on Instagram, Threads for some reason. And Favi, before I let you go, any final words?
Oh, thank you for having me on. And man, did we have fun in this Club World Cup. And I really hope MLS teams take the CONCACAF Champions Cup very seriously so we can have as many teams as possible in this tournament, because this is a great representation for the leagues, and playing well in this Club World Cup just really, brings so many people, so many eyes onto your team. So definitely pay attention to this.
Yes, I appreciate it, my friend. Until next time, guys, I'll see you all soon.